Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. I would like to invite all guests to be seated as our program will begin shortly. Thank you for your cooperation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon. Yang berusaha Puan Norashikin T. Muhammad, Deputy Chief Librarian, UTM Library, respected presenters, distinguished guests, students and staff, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Bicara Karya program. To begin the program with the blessings, I would like to invite Encik Muhammad Atif Mahusin to lead the Doa recitation and a moment of silence.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. النبي الكريم وآله وأصحابه الكرام الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا حامدين حمدا شاكرين حمدا نعمه ويكافي مزيده. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلالك الكريم وعظيم السلطان. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا وارحمهما كما ربونا صغارا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء بأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن رحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رب اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحلل عقدة من لساننا يفقه قولنا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله منكم.
Thank you, Cik Muhammad Atif. Alhamdulillah, we are truly blessed to be able to meet again in another round of Bicara Karya program. This program, which is organized by UTM Library in collaboration with UTM International Student Society, aspires to be a medium to promote and cultivate a lifetime reading habit among UTM students and staff. Today, we are pleased to have with us 3 international students who will share their reviews and thoughts of their reads. Our first presenter, Brother Musiliu Folarin Farayola, who hails from Nigeria, is currently pursuing his PhD in Mathematical Science from the Faculty of Science. Without further delay, I would like to invite Brother Musiliu to present his book review on Malay Muslims, the History and Challenge of Resurgent Islam in Southeast Asia. Please give a round of applause.
According to this topic, Malay Muslims, the history, the challenge of resurgent Islam in Southeast Asia. The book, first of all, you can get the book from the library. It was written by Robert D. McAmis, who happens, first of all, he wasn't a Malay, and secondly, he was not a Muslim. So let's see what he has to say. Now, when we talk of Malay Muslims, as a foreigner, I remember the first time I landed in Malaysia. I was very excited when I saw the level of Islam in Malaysia. Then I've always asked myself, what caused all this? Has there been anything that has happened before? Because you cannot suddenly see Islam as pronounced as this without some effort. Some efforts must have happened before. Now, in order to understand the book very well, I like to ask some things. These questions, I will answer 2 of them at the beginning of the presentation and the remaining 2 at the end of the presentation. Number 1, who is a Malay? Then the second question is, who is a Malaysian? Then the third question is, who is a Muslim? And the last question is being a Malay the same thing as being a Muslim? Because if you interact with Malays, the first thing they ask you is that if you ask them, who is a Malay, who is a Malaysian? In our hall, we stay with Indonesians. Most of the time they say, are you a Malay? We will tell you, no, I'm not a Malay, I'm an Indonesian. Then what's the difference? Who exactly is Malay? Now the answer is not far-fetched. You see, Malays are a form of ethnic group. It's a group that speak the same language, Bahasa Melayu. So it's not really compulsory that all Malays are in Malaysia. We have Malays outside Malaysia. So now the Indonesians are also Malays. So the Malay is a race, but Malaysia is a country that has some parts of Malays. So the Malays are mainly spread out in the Southeast Asia. So we have Malays in Indonesia, we have Malays in Malaysia, and we have Malays in the Philippines. Also Singapore, Brunei, Vietnam. So these people are Malays. So next time when you see an Indonesian, if you ask him, are you a Malay? If he says no, tell him that you are a Malay, but you are from Indonesia. So that is obviously the difference between Malays. Now, let's look at this is a picture of Malays. Now, when you now look at Malays, there is something that is peculiar about them. They are mainly Muslims. Now, let's look at from the beginning of history, the Malays, they represent the largest ethnic group of Muslims in the world. We have over 200 million Muslim Malays. They are more than other ethnic groups. Like in Africa, we have the Folarin tribe, but the Malays are more than that. So now, amongst these 200 million Malay Muslims, 98, for instance, in Indonesia, 98% of the Indonesian population are Malay Muslims. But in Malaysia, it's more of 50%. I know that some people might not want to agree with that or something because they want to claim that Malays are more. But the reality is that the Muslim Malay in Malaysia, they are around that 50-60%. Now, if you look at Malaysians, now they represent over 200 million Muslims. Now, before we now, the first thing we now ask ourselves is that how did Islam get to Malaysia? How did Islam get to Malaysia? Let's look at the spread of Islam from the death of during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. You know that the Prophet was in Arabia. So after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, then we had Islam expanded from Arabia. But these people were traveling with camels and so on and so forth. So the distance that they could get to was very limited. So we have the first first 7 centuries. So we have Abu Bakr, Umar, and so on. Umar, Usman, Ali. Then after them came the Umayyads, people like Muawiyah. And after the Umayyads came the Abbasids. And after the Abbasids came the Ottoman Empire. These people, they spread Islam all over the world. Their main objective was that Islam should get to every part of the world. But unfortunately, as at that time, there was no Islam in Malaysia, in Southeast Malaysia. So, for the first 7 centuries, the Malays were not Muslims. Now, after the first 7th century of Islamic expansion, that time we call it the golden age of Islam. Then another century, another 7 centuries followed. That was when Islam was now experiencing decline in most parts of the world. So the expansion was not like the first. So in the first 7 centuries, the Muslims were the leaders. But after that, so during that time, the Westerners, the Europeans, they were still in the dark ages. But after the 7 centuries, Islam experienced decline as a result of internal fighting. So that was when the Europeans now began their own crusade. So they started spreading Christianity. Then they were now colonizing everywhere. They colonized Africa. So now, you now look at if something goes up, it has expanded, then it's declined. Then, if it wants to go back up again, that's what you now call the resurgent period. Now, let's look at the history of Malay Islam. After the death of the Prophet, let's say the first centuries, the first set of people that the Malays were exposed to. So now when we talk of the Malays, we group all of them together. They were the Indians. The Indians just came on a business trip. It was basically business. So after that, as they were doing the business, they were also spreading Hinduism and Buddhism. And the local Malays then, they were mainly animists. The animists are what you call idol worshippers in our place. So there they were animists. Now, so the 3 dominant religions there amongst the Malays was Hinduism, Buddhism, and people being animists. Then, after that, when Islam was declining, around the 13th century, then the Muslims, the Arabs too, now started to come to Southeast Asia. That was when the Malays now had encounter with the Muslims. You can see their own first encounter was 13 centuries after the death of the Prophet. Now you can ask yourself that in our own place we met Islam earlier, but you still cannot compare the Islamic practice there with Islamic practice in Malay. Now, this thing began in the 13th century. So in the 13th century, the Malays had encounter with Muslims. And also the areas that quickly accepted Islam then were places like Sumatra, Malacca, and Malaya. So once these people accepted Islam, now the reason why they accepted Islam was not because they really understood Islam to a very high extent. The reason why they accepted Islam was because they compared. They compared Hinduism, Buddhism, and this animist pattern. They now said, okay, Islam is superior, so we are not going to be Muslims. But their own Islam was not an orthodox Islam. It wasn't as if they really had much knowledge, but they were very, very adamant with Islam. That's why people say, you see, a Malay will never abandon Islam. So if you want to preach another thing, you are only wasting your time. So then the Indians they've also accepted Islam. You know that this was 13th century after the death of the Prophet. So it implies that the type of Islam that entered Malay was one that had been mixed up. The Arabs came, the Indians too came. So when they came, they also came with Sufism. Sufism. So the Islam was also mixed with Sufism. That's Sufi influence. Now, when the Malays now became Sufis, they were now trying as much as possible to practice Islam. So that was around 13th century. So, but they were preaching Islam in a very, very simple way. So their own Islam was very simple. But after accepting the Islam, they did not abandon the old traditions. That's what you now call the Malay customs. Islam came, but they will practice Islam in a very simple way, but they will still adhere strongly to their old traditions, to the old customs. Then, when the British now saw that Islam was gaining ground, because people in Indonesia, they've already accepted Islam, Malaysia, they've also accepted Islam, and people in Philippines, they've also accepted Islam. So the Europeans now made a target that the next area we are going to conquer now will be Southeast Asia, because they've conquered Africa, they've conquered North Africa, and also West Africa, and some areas in South Africa. Now, the next target is now Southeast Asia. Now, if you look at, earlier I said Indonesia has 98% Malay Muslims. Malaysia, let's say 50%. But if you look at Philippines, even that name happens to be an abnormal name. How can Malay, how can their country be called Philippines? You see, when Spain conquered Philippines, the area was originally East Malaysia. When they conquered the place, they had a young prince then by the name Prince Philip. They now changed the name of that place to Philippines in order to honor their prince, Prince Philip. So then they made a deliberate effort. So yes, we are going to talk about that later. So some areas were conquered by the British. For instance, in 1824, the Malaya Peninsula, this area, was conquered by the British, and also in 1819, Singapore was also conquered, and by 1786, Penang was also conquered by the British. When the British conquered all these places, now they had a target. The first target was that the Arabs that were trading in Southeast Asia, they said they want to take away that trade from the Arabs. So the first intention was based on economic purpose. Let's take away the economic power of the Arabs.